Can the lives of young men and women be transformed after experiencing conflict all throughout their lives? I am joined on the program by Abraham Daljang Maker, author of the new book titled The Whisper of Hope. Join us as we discuss this and more only on Beyond the Headlines. Abraham Daljang Maker is a humanitarian worker, development practitioner, journalist, blogger, and peace advocate. Daljang was the Southern Sudanese BBC Focus and Network African active contributor from 2004 to 2008. He's the founder of the Pulse for Peace Facebook page, a platform that advocates for peace and coexistence among people of Lake State in South Sudan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eunice. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. You grew up at the time of the SPLM revolution when conflict was taking place between the SPLM and the Sudan government. At the time, you lived in your village with your mother and relatives. Can you describe what life was like growing up during that period of time?
Sure. It was not such a life that a young child could dream to have, because everything was so difficult. There were a lot of things going around. First of all, there were a lot of famine, and I can remember in 1998, there was a famine that was across South Sudan. And we used to walk on foot from our village to Akot, where World Food Program was delivering food to the people. And what I can recall about that situation was that those that had organized system, especially those that are under the chiefdom, I mean, where you hear about the things to do with the Banywood, you know, were able to get that opportunity because they were registered and they were able to get food. But my mother and I were not registered and under any other clan system. And we were getting support from friends, some relatives, but it wasn't an easy thing. Secondly, we had a difficult time in getting better education because we were learning under the trees, and also the teachers that taught us were Arabic pattern. Their first learning was in Arabic, but they were able to get some bits of English. So it was a bit of a struggle, and we were able to catch up. First of all, there were no exercise books where we could write and then be able to revise. As described in the book, we were just allowed to write on the sand, and then the teacher comes with a long stick and mug and say, you can now go home. You don't have a place where you can revise. So yes, we juggled through such a situation, and we were able to try to compete with some children in East Africa who were able to have better education.
Yeah, your father was a cattle keeper who was well known for his praises of his bull, after which he was named. When your father fell in love with your mother, they faced quite a lot of opposition, which you described quite vividly in your book. Can you go ahead and tell our viewers why the opposition took place?
You know, it's all about the culture. First of all, you know, in Dinka culture, when a lady gets pregnant out of wedlock, there are a lot of issues coming up. First of all, she has dishonored the clan and the family also. So that is one aspect of it. The second one is, you know, in the clan system, there is a way of organizing marriage. For example, if I'm the first son in the family, I have to be the one to marry first before my followers. The same can apply to the sons of my uncles. For example, if my uncle is the elder of my father, his children, his first son should be the one to marry before me. So what happened in that situation was my father was the son of the second born in their family, and his uncle had a son, and he could not marry because the elder cousin was not married. So that was one of the aspects that created a lot of opposition from the family. And that made it so hard. Secondly, the issue of having impregnated someone's daughter without having paid the dowry was seen as, I don't know how I can put it, but seen as a disrespect to the family. And they didn't want him anymore. They just wanted to beat him up, and they wanted to take their daughter away. All these aspects were contributing factors for the opposition of my dad marrying my mom.
Mhm. Now, you dedicated your book to your mother and described her as the strongest woman in the whole wide world, a woman made of steel. She is my heroine, my mentor, and my superhuman. Based on what you have written about your mother in your book, one could understand why you described her as such. Please talk about some of the experiences your mother went through apart from being pregnant out of wedlock. What are some of the backlashes that she faced? Because in the book you described a lot of beating that she experienced.
Yes, actually, my mother is a symbol, is a representation of South Sudanese women who are going through a lot of suffering. It might not be just a girl that gets pregnant outside the wedlock, but it might be that woman in the house that is going through a lot of abuse and in the marriage, domestic violence. So one of the themes of my book is about gender disparity in South Sudan. And my mother happened to be the symbol of that. So she's the one standing in the center of all these other South Sudanese women who are going through a lot of suffering. And you might have heard, Eunice, about some girls in South Sudan, and more particularly in Rumbek and Rumbek East, where some girls were beaten to death because they got pregnant. So when I thought about this, yes, my mother is my hero, my mentor, and she really went through a lot, which I describe in that book that I don't need to talk about anymore. But I'm looking at her as also a representation of other South Sudanese women who must have suffered the same way she has. As I speak now, I am who I am because of how she cared for me. She was so resilient despite all the suffering she went through. And now she can move with her head higher because I have not achieved anything though, but the fact that I'm alive, she's alive, I'm able to bring food on her table indicates that any other woman outside there is my hero and is my mentor.
Mhm. In the book, you talked about seeing young children with their fathers and admiring the bond they shared. Even though you grew up hearing positive stories about your father and you grew to love him in his absence, what was that experience like growing up without a father?
Precisely, I can say a terrible experience, and it is still haunting me up to now because I have never seen him. I never experienced his love. But I thank God that I'm alive because even the Bible says things happen for a reason. I don't know where I would be if he was alive. Maybe I would have been much better than this, or maybe I wouldn't have been much better than this. But growing up without your father is one of the difficult things. And also, just like I said about my mom being a symbol of women suffering in South Sudan, the same thing. There are some. I'm not the only one that has not, seen the father. There are other South Sudanese children outside there whom fathers were not able to see them and bring them up in a good way that they wish to do. Some of them died in war. Some of them died, as a result of diseases and all these other things that you can mention. I still feel that I miss my father, although I don't know him. And day and night, I pray that God let it stop from me and ensure that I live to see my children growing up and bring them up in a way that I want them to be. So it's a terrible experience.
Mhm. Yes, indeed. I think we both shared that same similar experience in a way. though we both lost our fathers in different forms. And people can pick up your book titled The Whisper of Hope to find out really what led to your father departing this world. I want to go on to, from a young age, you valued education, and so you saw its importance, regardless of the challenges you faced from not knowing where you would go to school, who would pay for your school fees, where you'd get the funds. Why was pursuing an education so important to you from a young age?
To be honest with you, from that age, I didn't know the importance of education. And I can confess that I was just following the rest of the children that were going to school. But like I also put it in my book, my mother never went to school, but she was the one that inspired me. She would tell me, as written in that book, that the pain that you have is your mother, is going to be your mother, your sister, and your brother, and your father. What she was trying to explain to me was that culturally, a son can get married because his sister is married off, so that he is able to get dowry and marry for himself. But since I didn't have a sister that would be married and be able to get married, which is the value of cows in South Sudan and in Dinka culture in particular, she was advising me to go to school. So I can't really tell how did she know that education is an important thing in someone's life. But as years roll on, and then I was able to go higher and higher with education, I realized that education is the key that can, save you from ignorance and can also help you.
Apparently, in the Dinka culture, a child receives several names as he or she transitions from childhood to adulthood. Growing up, you were given the name Juak by your grandfather. Then your paternal relatives called you Makol, that you mentioned was given to someone, the name was given to someone born during the daytime. When you were being enrolled in school by your mother's sister, she wrote down in your school certificate that your name is Abraham Daljang Maker. That is quite interesting. Can you talk about that?
The three names were given by different people based on their understanding and their hope on me. The first one is Juak, where my grandmother, my grandfather, had a hope that I will add value to his wealth or maybe to his life. And he died calling me Juak. Every time he would call me Juak, and that's the name he values a lot. And most of my aunties, my mother's sisters, call me that name up to now. And then my paternal parents prefer calling me Makol, just because I was born at daytime. But Daljang is very contradictory based on each individual's explanation, just like the way I put it in the book. My grandmother, my father's mother, says in their family, they don't have a male child. And even her own children, my father was the only male child before he died. And then my aunties, the sisters of my dad, are four. So basically in the family, there were no male children. And when I was born, according to my grandmother's explanation, she said, Jang Amonjang, of course, and they were all happy, saying that it's good that Makira has given birth to a baby boy and is going to be, his hair is going to inherit the name of the family. That's my mom, my grandmom's explanation. But my auntie that registered me in the school had and is still having her own explanation because, like I described it, she said my mother was a very beautiful lady in the village that was expected to fetch a lot of cows, but because she got pregnant out of wedlock and to a poor man like my father that could not marry her, like everybody was happy. I mean, people were laughing in sarcasm. They were so sarcastic that the beautiful daughter of so-and-so is pregnant, who was expected to fetch a lot of cows. So you can see the two versions of the name. I didn't know what to do about it because I realized later that there are two contradictions in the name. So I chose to take the positive one and decided not to be defined by my name or be defined by what people think, but be defined by my own value, what I do in a society and what I can do to my family.
While you were still young, you were sent to Uganda to pursue your high school education and later your university degree. What was that experience like?
After completing my primary education in South Sudan, I didn't have any other hope of going ahead. Besides, there were no secondary schools that were available apart from Rumbek Senior Secondary School. My initial hope and goal was to finish primary aid, which was considered to be the highest level of education at that time, because we didn't have any other higher institution that we could look at. But when I finished my primary aid around 2001, Rumbek Senior Secondary School was open, and that was another goal that I set. But I didn't have a chance of going to Rumbek Senior Secondary School because I didn't have money. I didn't have a sister that was married off so that I could sell the cows. We were not having goats at home, you know. But I really tried to do some petty business. I would go and buy some tobacco in the cattle camp, come and sell them, and then get some grains, come and sell grains in town. In trying to do all this, I was also working as a volunteer with an international, with national NGO Cross by the time, and there were a lot of white people from Germany, from other parts of Europe and America. So I got this woman that was so kind, and she saw some ambition in me, and she could see that I would be someone in future that can help my community. So she was the one that paid my secondary school education in Rumbek Senior, where I did my second term. I mean my first term, but I did not do my second term. That's when now when the school was not able to continue properly, she suggested that I should go to Uganda. Going to Uganda was not an easy ride because it's a new country that I've never been to, and I've never been to a town. So it was a new experience, exciting at the same time. It's scary because I didn't have relatives in Uganda. I didn't know anyone, but it was a journey of unknown location with the hope that God maybe will direct me to the people that I know. Of course, after 1 week, I was able to meet South Sudanese, especially from Rumbek, that I stayed with until I completed my secondary school and I joined the university. So all in all, it was so exciting. At the same time, so scary.
Not many people in our community, have been able to complete their university education, and you were able to succeed in doing that and receiving a degree in journalism. What drew you to the field of journalism?
That time when we were in the villages, there were no FM stations, the shortwaves. We were using shortwaves where we used to listen to, we would buy some radio sets. Barpakeng is one of the small trading centers in Rumbek, where many traders would go and bring some goods from Uganda. And most of us were so passionate. We were so interested to know what is happening around the world. And one of the radio stations that I used to listen to was the BBC. Although I was not able to hear, what was being aired on because I didn't have good education. I was also in primary school, and also the accent of the British people and those that have studied in the UK that are presenters, the accent was so thick that I was not able to understand. But for the purpose of entertainment, I was able to listen to the presenters, the Alex Jakana, Tokondoro, Hassan Aruni, those radio presenters, and I admired them. So I promised myself that if I had an opportunity to go up to the university level, more especially when I was now in secondary school, I promised that I wanted to be a BBC presenter, and I used to, imitate those guys. I would say this is the BBC Focus on Africa in London. My name is Abraham Daljang, like that. So that was the passion. So up to now, as a humanitarian worker, although I'm not working in the field of journalism, my heart still melts for communication. And Eunice, I would like to inform you that I'm now doing my second master's in strategic communication in Uganda Christian University. I would have graduated in 2021, this year, had it not been the outbreak of coronavirus.
Yes, congratulations on pursuing your master's. Oh, that's great. Now, as we conclude the interview, what would you like people to take out from reading your book, The Whisper of Hope?
There are three things that I would like people to know. Although there are a lot of themes in the book, but there are only three things that I want to tell to the young people, because we are the future of this country. The three things are the hope itself, which is the name of the book, because no matter how much we suffer, whatever the situation we go in, we should have hope. And it's also in the Bible for those that are Christian. Secondly, there are a lot of miseries that everyone can go through. I went through a lot of miseries, suffering from childhood up to adulthood. And up to now, I'm still struggling with life, but there's that resilience that is in us, that if you have hope, you will get out of that, misery. So whereas people are suffering, there should be hope in you. Thirdly, there are opportunities that can present themselves to us. We need to take such opportunities with faith, because another theme is faith. So lastly, one of the things that I talked about is about gender disparity. We need to grow together with our mothers, with our sisters, with our wives, with our daughters, because this is one of the things that we need to really focus, girl-child education. If my mom if my mom went to school and perhaps she could not get married and then maybe got pregnant out of wedlock, maybe our suffering would not have been the way it was. So I urge the young girls outside there, education is the key. Go to school, study hard. If things don't go well, you will be able to care for yourself.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, where can people purchase your book?
One of the challenges that I have faced really is the cost of the book and the reading culture. I printed a lot of books. There were about 200 books, which I have. Some of them were bought, but majority are still at the University of Juba. I do an ad hoc support, like if somebody requests for it, I give them a PDF so that they are able to read it. So my aim is not a profit making thing, because I think the books that I bought were only 10 out of 200 books. The rest, I just gave them out to people because I want my story to be known. I want also to inspire young people. I also want to, even the elders, there are some people that could be in despair. So go to University of Juba, you will be able to get some copies. Contact me directly. There are some copies here in Rumbek. There are some copies in Kwajok. And those that may not be able to get them, get the hard copies, I can also be able to send them soft copies, especially the PDF format.
Yes.
You will enjoy the book, whoever needs to read it.
Yes, I really enjoyed reading the book, and it's quite inspiring. And, you went through a lot of hardship in life with your mother, but, you were resilient, you have a strong spirit, and you persevered, completed your university education. Now you're helping your mother, which is quite wonderful. We've been joined on the program by Abraham Daljang Maker, who is a humanitarian worker, developmental practitioner, journalist, blogger, and peace advocate. Thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eunice.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at Sunrise Media.